Rosemary and Ellen, good afternoon and good morning from my time. We are now at key number 1, leadership, which is a very fascinating topic. And before we dive into the content and the substance of your article, I would like to give the opportunity to you to introduce yourself.
So my name's Rosemary Howell. In Australia, you would call me a pracademic, which means that I have the luxury of being a professorial fellow at the University of New South Wales, but I also have a very busy private practice as a mediator, facilitator and coach, and increasingly these days as a mediation coach. And I've been in the field since the late 80s.
Great. Alan?
And my name's Alan Limbury. I was a litigation lawyer for many years before attending the Harvard courses in negotiation and mediation by Professors Roger Fisher and Frank Sander, and they changed my life. And I've since practiced as a mediator, and I also qualified as a chartered arbitrator through the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators.
Good. Thank you very much. So we have very different perspectives and view on the topic of mediative leadership. And you wrote a very powerful piece on that. What is the core actually from that you wanted to communicate in your article? And I know the two of you agree on pretty much everything, so I'll just put it out there for either of you to start answering that.
Well, it's an interesting piece because there are 4 authors of this piece, and we each contributed different parts. And I think the piece that's most important to me stems from when I was studying at Harvard and then working as a teaching assistant. The definition of a good working relationship struck me and has stayed with me. The ability to deal well with differences. And it seems to me the heart of leadership and the heart of being the most effective leaders of a dispute resolution community is that we honour and respect differences and we deal effectively with them. So to me, that's powerful, precious, part of my life's work, and was very important to me to appear in this key.
Okay, so you say it's important to have a good working relationship and to honor and respect differences and know how to deal with it. And that is a very important core of mediative leadership.
Yes, yes, that's right. Well said, thank you.
And Ellen, is that also your point of view? Do you have something to add to that?
Well, I certainly agree with that, but to me, I'd like to see generational change in the legal profession. And I think teaching principles, negotiation and mediation at law schools is gradually bringing about that generational change. But unfortunately, these courses are mostly optional. And I think one way to prompt universities to make these courses compulsory is to persuade bar associations and law societies to make mediation skills training a precondition to admission to practice law.
Okay, so for you, in addition to that, mediative leadership is to establish a new generation of mediative leaders, in particular in the legal society. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because lawyers are often regarded as the wholesalers of disputes. So unless they understand the process and find the process useful, and instead of regarding ADR as standing for alarming drop in revenue, unless they can do that, we won't see the kind of change we need. And already I think I see the undergraduates and the graduates leaving Rosemary's courses to become lawyers with that mindset, which is a question of generational change, because we need them to ascend through the legal profession. We need them sitting on the bench as judges, and then we'll have the kind of change that's necessary.
And what about managers? Do you also think that every business school should offer negotiation and conflict management courses?
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. About?
I said, what about the managers? You know, do you, you're speaking managers. I don't know whether this is Dinglish English. So people who
managers,
are leading,
managers.
Yeah, not just lawyers.
So do you?
Yes, well, of course, corporate counsel. I think they are already much further ahead. And we've seen plenty of examples of corporate counsel taking the lead and choosing the particular team that they want for a particular case, instead of being constantly wedded to the same law firm forever.
And it's very interesting that you pick up on the CLOs and the corporate councils, because actually the question I wanted to ask, but I wasn't clear enough asking that question, is how do you see the management of the company? So, you know, those who are in the line management, because I very often hear from CLOs that they say, you know, we would like to change and go for an alternative option. However, our managers, you know, the ones who actually are in the dispute, don't want to do that. So I was thinking maybe it could be useful to have also mediative leadership while teaching them how to negotiate in an interest-based way, or how to deal with conflicts themselves, also in a preventive way. Do you also see some use for that? Or do you say, no, the real impetus is coming from the legal departments?
I think that's one of the most important areas, but clearly, yes. The actual disputants who are running the companies, or the actual parties, need themselves to be better aware of the benefits of mediation. And that, again, is a matter of education. Just seeing the word in the newspaper can be very helpful.
Yeah, that's true indeed. So we need to speak more about it, need to publish it, and need to teach it at all universities and schools, and to start as early as possible. So, Rosemary, when we speak about leadership, and you teach a lot about these topics and about mediation, are there any cultural differences in how leadership is being viewed and what mediative leadership is? Or is that something that we can all agree on? Or how do you see that?
I think we can probably all agree well with the concept that there's a leadership role for those of us who are proponents of mediation processes. I don't think we can all agree on what that role is or should be, and I don't think that's a problem if we can deal well with the way we see things differently. So I certainly think in life in general, and mediation in particular, each of us needs to think about what would it look like if we were demonstrating leadership. And I think that goes back to authenticity. Alan and I are very different people. If you accept Deborah Cole's work that gender differences are cultural differences, then here you've got some cultural differences. And I think cultural differences are always in play. So I think that affects, I think we all bring our own culturally influenced view of what leadership looks like, what's appropriate, and what it looks like when we are delivering it.
Okay, so you're saying it's actually about a mediative mindset, and the differences are in fact always there, and actually they are also great and a source of growth. However, it depends on how you are dealing with it, and that's the crux here in the entire thing.
Yes, and I think it's an aspiration. I think it's an aspiration to be our best self, And I think leadership is part of that aspiration.
Oh, that's beautifully said. And, in the conclusion of your article, there's a question, who can do this? Who can take the mediative leadership role or can set it off? And you say, actually, we all together can do it. And then the question I have, okay, then so how to start this then? Somebody needs to push all of us to start doing it, because we haven't been doing it yet within the mediation world. So what can we do? Or who should do something?
Well, my view is that you actually begin with a conversation. I think the race to action is not helpful. I think the reflective space between identifying the aspiration I talked about and figuring out what to do with it, that reflective space is where we need to linger for a while, because we do, as you said, we do all see things differently. And having the conversation about what would it look like if we were successful in this endeavour, the agreement about what it would look and feel like might help each of us to think about, well, what could the action plan be? But I would prefer to think about reflection first and action later.
So we need reflective conversations first among ourselves as mediators.
Yes, yes.
Beautiful. So actually we are starting then this entire movement now.
Yes, yes.
Great.
How wonderful.
Ellen, how do you see this? Who should start, or where should we start, or how should we start?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I do think there seems to be a degree of conflict within the field as to the definition of what mediation is, who should be doing it, when it should be done. All of those things are perhaps holding back a united approach towards ensconcing mediation as a well-accepted process worldwide.
So we need one lead mediator to mediate among us as mediator.
Absolutely.
Then we can have this conversation that Rosemary is thinking about. Okay, so that makes sense. Let's practice what we are preaching actually here. Let's first go to some of the other keys. I assume you have read some of the other contributions, and was there something that in particularly struck you while reading the entire work, or a particular piece?
I was very taken with the beginning. So the imagine piece and the language, because I'm very attracted by the language, particularly the idea of not best practice, but next practice. I think that's so useful, because next practice opens up the conversation that I'm keen to have. And I thought it was quite elegant the way the keys move through a discussion of a whole lot of ideas and then get elegantly brought together by Joanna's conclusion about many paths, one way. And again, I think that's aspirational, because we're not an homogeneous group.
So it's in fact an inspiring or an inspirational piece if you look at all the different angles that we can have worldwide, and so it's a landmark piece, and beautifully put together with a conclusion and an opening from imagining and what is the next steps we can take.
Exactly. Yes.
And Ellen, was there something that in particular?
Yes, I was struck by the number of key contributions advocating greater education and training in negotiation and mediation. And this seems to be one of the most important keys to the development of mediation as a profession and to its increased deployment in the field of dispute resolution by users, lawyers, courts, and legislatures.
And so that comes up also in a lot of the conversations that I'm having,
Yes.
together with the need for more data. Those are actually some, and also let's make sure the youth is going to lead some of the change and the movement. So those are really some of the key themes that come up. Are there any other things that you would like to share regarding your own contribution or regarding the mediation field, where we are heading?
In terms of other developments, is that what you'd like to discuss for the?
Yes, or something you would like to share with us, something you think is relevant?
I think you flagged the data piece, and I must say, I think one of the most significant things is that we're now moving from being an anecdotal collector of information to being data driven. And I think it was absolutely thrilling to see the qualitative research from the Global Pound Conference that Daniel Hutchinson and MMA Litchfield produced. It is absolutely thrilling. And I think to give us legitimacy as an evidence-based profession engaging in evidence-based practice, I think their research work, and they're continuing to do some more in Australia as well, I think their research work is world-beating in terms of the structure, the way they have brought in cross-disciplinary skills for research, and the very elegant language of their reports. So I'm absolutely thrilled with that. It gives me a lot of confidence.
That's the way to go. So a lot of the bright things in the future have been set in motion now. And
Yes.
for you, Ellen, some last words. Where are we heading? What's the future of our field?
I would like to see greater use of hybrid processes where the same neutral officiates both as arbitrator and as mediator in a way which encourages confidential disclosures in the mediation and also enables the arbitrator to observe procedural fairness so as to deliver an enforceable award. Mediators and arbitrators inhabit different worlds, and dispute resolution bodies should bring them together instead of keeping them apart, as some of them do. And as Mark Appel and Wolf von Kumberg say in their key, if users insist on contract clauses and policies that enable the flexible use of arbitration and mediation, service providers will step up to meet the challenge. And it is a challenge, but I think that's the way we should go.
Yeah, if it would be easy, we would already be there. I love how you are framing it like, okay, they both inhabit different worlds and
Yes.
you know, they need to be brought together. So actually that is a thread going through all of our conversation today, that we need mediative mindsets and somebody to, you know, just embrace the differences, and somebody taking leadership to kickstart the conversation and keep it going with while embracing all the differences. That's so. Thank you very much for this interview and for sharing all your insights and the backgrounds. And well, but I haven't been in Australia yet, so and especially now with the travel restrictions, there's not a big opportunity for, you know, us seeing each other face to face, but it has been lovely to finally, you know, have some time to interact with the two of you. Thank you for making the time and for sharing all your insights.
A
Thank
pleasure.
you.